Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernst Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. The Star Co-Brands LA Bowl, which formerly was known as the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl, but now it has been rebranded. It's between the UCLA Bruins and the Boise St Broncos on ABC at 7:30. Both of these teams have a lot of opt-outs, and both teams had an up-and-down year. UCLA, they had a decent start to the season. A lot of people thought that they were going to have a pretty good year, having Dante Moore enter into the program, but he had some struggles, and UCLA did not finish out their season strong. They're only 7-5 on the year, and Chip Kelly, he's on the hot seat, but he's still the head coach of the Bruins for now, whereas Boise State, they had a rough start to the year. They fired Andy Avalos, and then they brought in Spencer Danielson to be the interim coach. Now they've hired him as the full-time head coach because he became the first interim FBS head coach to ever lead a team to a conference championship win. That's what Boise State did over the UNLV Rebels. Boise State finished their year strong, going 8-5, but Taylen Green, their starting quarterback, is in the portal as well. If you look at the full opt-out list from both teams, you've got Dante Moore for UCLA, along with 5 other players, a couple of receivers, and a tight end. And on Boise State side, Taylen Green, their quarterback, transferred out to Arkansas. They've got a safety in the portal, and Eric McAllister, who was their top wide receiver. That's a tough loss for Boise State. And then you look at the spread. UCLA is favored by 4.5 according to the odds makers. Now, looking at what both quarterbacks did this year, Dante Moore, 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. The exact same with Taylen Green, the quarterback for Boise State. So both were turnover prone. We'll have to see if they do better at their next stop, but it still will be tough for both teams to have to navigate without their starting quarterbacks. Carson Steele had a solid year for UCLA on the ground, 847 yards and 6 touchdowns, but that does not compare to Ashton Genty's stats for Boise State. He had 1,262 yards and 14 touchdowns. He was a beast this year. George Halani's a good backup running back as well. So Boise State lives on the ground, but UCLA's defensive line was one of the better units of all the defensive line units in college football. So we'll have to see how they match up with Boise State's backfield. Logan Loya, he had a decent year for UCLA at receiver, 650 yards, 5 touchdowns. The aforementioned Eric McAllister, 873 yards, 5 touchdowns, but he is transferring out from Boise State. The FPI predictor has UCLA with a 58.2% chance to win, and Boise State at 41.8% chance. So the FPI predictor does agree with the odds makers that Boise State will not win and that UCLA will. But looking at what UCLA has done this year, they started out with a nice win over Coastal Carolina. That was when they had Grayson McCall in the lineup. Then they beat San Diego State, which they had a rough year. Then they beat North Carolina Central in blowout fashion. But then they lost at Utah, and that's when the problem started for Dante Moore. He did not have a good game. Then they were able to beat Washington State, though. That was a good win at the time because a lot of people thought Washington State was going to have a great year. But the Cougars ended up not even making a bowl game after they got to number 13 in the rankings. Then they lost to Oregon State, beat Stanford and Colorado, both solid wins, even though neither team was good. But then they lost to Arizona, which obviously Arizona ended up having a great year, but that still was not the best loss in the world for UCLA. They weren't that competitive in that game, but then they lost the home game to Arizona State, and that's when the rumors that Chip Kelly was going to be fired. Obviously, Ethan Garbers was playing at quarterback for UCLA around this time when Dante Moore was struggling, and Ethan Garbers, he will be the starting quarterback in this game, and he is up and down. He has not put up the best stats, but he is a quarterback that is capable as long as he doesn't turn the football over, because UCLA did beat USC, but that's because USC's defense is so bad. But then they lost to Cal 33-7. I thought that was going to be the end of Chip Kelly, but he's still hanging on to his job right now. So you can see UCLA was up and down. They had quarterback issues with Dante Moore, Ethan Garbers, but now Ethan Garbers again will be starting in the bowl game. We'll have to see how it goes. Then you got on the Boise State side, they started out with a blowout loss to Washington, which the Huskies ended up making the playoffs, so not too bad of a loss. Then they lost to UCF at home. That was a game a lot of people thought Boise State should win. Then they beat North Dakota and barely beat San Diego State, who had a bad year. Then they lost to Memphis, knocked off San Jose State, which wasn't too bad of a win since San Jose State did make a bowl game. But then they lost to Colorado State. That was not a good loss. Then they blew out Wyoming at home. That was a good win. Then they lost to Fresno State in close fashion. They beat New Mexico, Utah State, Air Force, and UNLV to close out the year. year, and that's when Spencer Danielson became the intern coach after they fired Andy Avalos, who was not having Boise State heading in the right direction. They have been trailing off lately, becoming more of a 7-5 type of program, when normally they are always the class of the Mountain West and usually sometimes ranked in the top 25. So they want to get back to that, and they feel that Spencer Danielson will be able to get them there. But they're going to have to find a way to win this bowl game without Taylon Green because, again, he's in the transfer portal going to Arkansas, and their backup quarterback, Maddox Madsen, he's out injured as well. So C.J. Tiller, the true freshman quarterback, he's going to have to come in and try to lead Boise State to victory without Eric McAllister as well, wide receiver. No Dante Moore for UCLA. So me and WillND, we have the tough task to try to figure out who's going to win this LA Bowl, whether it's the Pac-12 with UCLA being able to win without Dante Moore and possibly help out Chip Kelly by getting an important bowl win and get their 8th win of the year, or will Boise State continue to win their games with Spencer Danielson now taking over the controls as the head coach of Boise State and be able to lead the Broncos to their 9th win with a freshman quarterback, but they still got the talented tandem in the backfield. This should be a solid game despite the opt-outs, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
I'm going with the Broncos. I feel like every time a Mountain West team plays a lower tier Pac-12 team, the Mountain West team always wins every time. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Broncos 34-17 over UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go with Boise as well because UCLA has been losing lately. In Boise State, now that Spencer Danielson's coach, they're winning again, and they look like not Boise of 2010 and 09 when they were great, but they look more like 2018 Boise. They're getting better. So I'm going to go with Boise 31-21. UCLA's offense probably is going to sputter too much for them to win. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below who you think will win. Whether you think UCLA will be able to win without Dante Moore or Boise State will be able to win without Taylon Green, and what you think about me and WillND's pick for the LA Bowl. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.